Hi, welcome to another episode of Home Projects with Carpenter. Today we're going to be doing some overhead lighting. I have a house that was built in 1968, and when they built it, they didn't install any overhead lighting. So today we're in the bedroom. So I want to put in two overhead lights over a sofa that I have next to me, and it'll provide some nice overhead reading. We're also going to look at what the wiring, some basic wiring principles. So if you're kind of new to wiring and you've never installed any kind of electrical components and adding switches to things, this is the video for you. I will show a few diagrams and just do a walkthrough of step-by-step instructions of how you would actually do some of the wiring, what connection you have to do so you're not going to electrocute yourself. And it's actually pretty basic. It's a lot of just connecting wires in the right order, making sure that the breakers are off before you do your work, and then powering it up. So if you are done with lamps, and if you're done with having dark rooms and you have all these lamps and overhead and those little lamps that are on those stands, and if that's the lighting that you are kind of stuck with, well, this is the video for you, and I'll show you kind of a brief tutorial on overhead lighting. This one's going to involve installing two lights in our bedroom. These are the type of can lighting. I'm going to be installing some LEDs. These have typically a little wire harness in the back. A lot of times they're orange, I've noticed. And these will eventually connect in to the housing from here. See that little wire harness on the back side. This is going to be up in the crawl space, and this is what's called a remodel box. So you can actually cut the hole in the ceiling. I'll show you how to do that. You cut the hole in the ceiling, then you have your wiring that is down from below, and you pull this box out. You do all your wiring in here, and then your leads come out to this, and then you can install your light. Once this thing is properly mounted, you actually fish it in through the hole that you've created, and then you just push these little tabs in, and it holds it in place. So it's a nice, clean, flush finish to the ceiling. And once that's done, then you just plug your light in. It's really simple from that point on. So the hard part is, first of all, locating where you want to put these in your ceiling, and then actually running your wiring. So the wiring runs in our ceiling. It'll run over to a wall outlet that I'll have to create. So this is where we've got our wall switch. So I'm going to have the switch pulling the power from this area. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to put this in place of, and then put in a new switch. So I have two switches. So I'll show you a few other tools you're going to need. So you need some of this kind of wiring. So this is Romex. You'll need one of these switches. This will be the one that, the old switch that I had already in place. I'm going to take that out, take the box that's out of there, and then put this in place, because the one that's in there, the one that's in the wall, is only going to be half of this, because it just has one in there, one like that. So I'm going to create a wider opening, and this is also called a remodel box. So these kind of tabs, when you put these in place, these have these little tabs, these little wings that pop up when you screw it in, and then it will close in on itself. So as you screw that, this thing pinches closer and closer, and then it'll pinch onto the drywall. You can do all your connections inside of these boxes. They come with them. So you lift this cover up, and you actually do all your wiring from your Romex in through here. So you'll use one of these knockouts. These are called knockouts. So we'll eventually pop one of these out. You screw that in, and then you can run the Romex in there. When you push the wire in through there, as you poke it in through there, it will kind of hold tight on itself. When we get to the actual going down, the wiring going up in the ceiling and over to the box, probably you'll need to use a fish tape. So this thing, you stick it out, you pull this thing out, and then it's a rigid metal coil. This one's 25 feet long. Once you get to where you need it to go, then you tie your Romex on the back side of this. You just tape it to it, and then you pull your fish tape. You just wheel it back up, you yank it to wherever you need to go. A couple hand tools you'll probably need is some just regular Phillips and flathead screwdriver. I use rubber handle ones when I'm working with electrical. Okay, so then you need probably a pair of pliers. This is good because it's called lineman's pliers. It has a cutter blade on that, and then also it has a twister blade, so when you really need to wrench down hard on stuff, this is a really important electrical one. A smaller wire stripper. This one just kind of has a little bit better feel to it for me. So lineman's pliers, wire strippers, and then I usually use some sort of a needle nose when I'm twisting my leads around. You need some wire nuts, some sort of wire nuts. I usually use these yellow ones for most things if it's just a couple wires together. Okay, so here's an image, or at least a sketch of inside of our ceiling, and off to the right I've got a little diagram of what that box is going to end up looking like. So if I were to grab this box, and the location, kind of the final resting place, is going to be right there in between the rafters. So I'm going to take it from down below, kind of fish it in, and then that's where it's going to reside at the very end there. Okay, so if I were to draw a light down below, this is where your actual LED connection is. It's got a little wire harness, that's that orange piece. And then it's going to connect to the piece that's inside of the box, make that little junction kind of snap in place. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the interior wall framing. So this is your studs. A lot of times what you'll have is some blocking in between. So what you have to do is sometimes cut a hole in your drywall just to get your drill through and actually punch through that, or drill through that, so that you have a relatively easy path for your Romex to travel through. If you don't, if you have a box that's off to the side, you don't have to worry about it. But in this case, we actually had some blocking. So you have to drill a hole from your double top plate, and I use a 25-foot fish tape, so it's that metal fish tape. And at the end of it, that's where you'll attach your Romex. So you'll do some sort of a electrical tape, something that gets it nice and thin, and you usually fish it from the top, goes all the way through to the bottom, gives you kind of a path of travel, and then you just pull it in through. So that green is representing the Romex. So that kind of comes up to inside your attic space and eventually over to your box that's over in the ceiling. And what I had to do was cut out that opening and open it up a little bit larger. And I had power there already, but if you don't, you can use a power from a switch from down below if you're adding a new switch. So you kind of have these two options in that wall. You have, in our case, we had an existing switch. So if you have that, all you have to do is open it up wider. If you don't have an existing switch, then what you have to do is open that box up right above where you have an outlet and pull power from a nearby outlet. So those are kind of your two options. want to show what the final job looked like. Let me flip the switch on here. It has a nice lights right over the couch there, right where I wanted them. Well, thanks for watching another episode of Home Projects with Carpenter. Had a good time installing these overhead lights. I've done a few other ones in other places in the house, but this is probably my favorite one just because it's in the bedroom, so it'll provide some nice reading light. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. And if you want future notifications, hit the bell icon, and we'll catch you on the next video. Thanks.